Willkommen, bienvenue on this temperate morning. It's not quite as hot as it has been, thank goodness. I can actually think. Where we're talking about topics all to do with the property market, where it's going, and perhaps making vague predictions about where it should go or where it could go. Today's topic: who will be tomorrow's property solicitors? I mean, it's a good question. At the moment, it appears to be ever increasingly onerous task. Hamish, would you care to start us off?
Well, yes, good morning to all. One of our morning podcasts, in fact, the only morning podcast at the moment. And so welcome to you all. Interesting subject that we speak of today. Let me make a little comparison. I was teaching and I retired at the grand old age of 31 out of teaching and returned 20 years later to find there was such a decline in the quality of teaching that it was staggering. However, it has become absolutely worse. The term professionalism really doesn't really belong with so many of the teachers that we have today. It's a sad admission, and much the same has been happening within the conveyancing world, in that we're not speaking about the quality of solicitors necessarily. We're speaking about the quality of conveyancing professionals, because we no longer just have solicitors. In fact, anybody can carry out conveyancing now. The law around about 2007 changed, which accelerated the current number of conveyancers as opposed to conveyancing solicitors. And the sad thing is, the Law Society themselves cannot define what is actually sort of happening with conveyancing solicitors. We're actually losing 2,000 solicitors a year. In fact, practicing conveyancing solicitors, we're losing 2,000 per year. What the Solicitors Regulation Authority maintain is that 8,000 new solicitors are admitted to the role annually. Now, they're not all going to be conveyancing solicitors. There were many facets of I was going to say soliciting. Probably not the appropriate word.
That's one that we're not going to cover right now. Yes, carry on.
But what we can actually sort of see, if we're losing 2,000 conveyancing solicitors per year, it has become a much more complex feature. Fortunately, as we sort of found out last week at our Members' Day celebration of IPSA, there are some interesting solutions sort of coming along, and people are collaborating more. However, what we're finding is that people are taking the pressure away from conveyancing solicitors in helping them through that process, because they will take responsibility for the likes of stamp duty, the likes of climate change, and all sorts of aspects of that. The solicitors themselves, conveyancing solicitors, do not need to be experts, which is just as well when you actually look at the complications these days of what goes on with leasehold, what goes on with shared ownership, and all of these things.
Yeah.
Very, very big demand. So any help we can give them is great. However, are more retiring than really are actually sort of joining as conveyancing solicitors. Where is that new stock going to come from? Where are those, great new professionals? Where are they indeed going to come from?
Well, welcome to the show, Silas. So it's almost like we haven't seen each other for days. Where is the new stock going to come from? I mean, it just feels that being a conveyancing solicitor is an ever more onerous task.
Well, you're quite right, Gareth. And I think every year it appears that the conveyancing solicitors are being asked to do more and more and more in fulfillment of their role. But the underlying problem that I think the industry's got that nobody really wants to admit or look at is the fact that they're charging less and less, or they're giving away incentives left, right, and centre to secure the work. And none of it is actually working, because you end up with the good conveyancers having more and more work piled upon them, which leaves them completely stressed. So I have heard up to 300 case files on one conveyancer's desk. So imagine that they're dealing with 300 live matters at any time. That's an extreme example, but regularly 60, 80, 120 cases live at any one time on somebody's desk that they've got to manage because the margins are so slim. Now, a couple of stats to throw into the mix. I'm surprised at some of the numbers that Hamish has said, although it doesn't surprise me in an unfortunate way that we are losing so many people from the profession. COVID had a major impact on law firms. There were 450 law firms that closed between 2021 and 2023 that closed from doing conveyancing. There was a survey done, I believe it was late last year by the Bold Legal Group, and about 90% of all conveyancers said they would not choose this profession if they were starting out as conveyancers today. And that is testament to how difficult the job has become and how unrewarding it is, not just financially, but emotionally. So the question is, to come back to your question, Gareth, how do we solve this issue? I think there is a large push in the industry to go, oh, AI will solve all of our sins. It can process work a lot faster. So we just need an experienced eye to cast it over the case files, and away we go. And I follow a gentleman called Stephen Larkham, and it's quite interesting that he's, I wouldn't say he's staunch anti AI, but he's very good at pointing out the shortcomings. One of which, apparently, the Crown Prosecution Service recently submitted cases in court to a judge that had been completely hallucinated again by AI.
This is actually a bit of a meme because it's going back a few months now. It was a much earlier. I mean, I'm not in any way improving.
No, for sure.
It was I think a junior barrister who was presenting a case, and the supposed case law was associated with, when you actually followed it through, it turned out they'd been entirely made up. The first thing that I say whenever you use AI, and I don't know what your thoughts are on this, is you need to tell it not to acquiesce, not because by definition AI is trying to please you all the time. So
100%.
Right.
And you're right that there has to be some guardrails. I would describe myself as quite a heavy user of AI, but I'm using it in a capacity to reflect back the thinking about subject matter that I already know. And that, I think that's really the key point. If you know your subject matter well and you are a true expert, the AI can run in parallel with your thinking because you're giving it solid material to work off. If it's just I want to do this, give me an output, I think that's where we're falling short. And I do wonder, I can see massive benefits of AI coming through for lawyers. I really can. And I think their role is going to shift massively from crunching the work to overviewing the work or the output, but having a more closer direct relationship with the consumer. So almost being, for want of a better word, a salesperson to interact with the client to ensure that their needs are met, not sitting in a back office somewhere crunching endless case files. There is an argument to say in time that will come through with AI, and I think it will. But in the interim, I think we've got to be very, very careful.
Well, Hamish, I know that you use AI, but are worried perhaps that it's removing the ingenuity and the authentic feel that humans can bring to the matter if you use it indiscriminately.
Well, it's something like muscles in a way, isn't it? If we are not continuously using our muscles, they're a trophy, and they become less and less useful to our bodies. And this is actually sort of says, particularly of those who are getting on in years, if we are not using the idea should be to actually maintain a certain element of fitness, whether it be by walking, whatever it sort of happens to be. But it's like anything else that isn't used on a regular basis. It are trophies. And I do believe this is what happens with creativity, because an awful lot of people, rather than looking to use their creative minds, what they're actually trying to do is get our AI to do it for them. So that creativity just diminishes from them. and all of a sudden AI is, I think we've called it all sorts of things, average intelligence. In fact, probably that's a little bit, because people with less than average intelligence, and there's nothing wrong with people having a lower intelligence. I mean, the world is full of great sort of people. The level of intelligence is almost sort of irrelevant to a certain extent, the way it's actually sort of measured, because you can be streetwise without having a level of intelligence. So I'm not getting at that from a perspective, but because so many people are using it, it diminishes its usefulness, because it is an average, and it's basically, we have said garbage in, garbage out. In many cases, we're not even getting an input from it. Is just, and some of it will actually sort of be sort of made up. And I think this is a sad thing. It's a great loss to the individual to lose their sort of creativity. AI can be such a tremendous boost to the creativity of the creative mind.
I think it can be like drinking coffee, isn't it? It make bad decisions faster. If you see what I mean, it will take whatever information you got out, and if you don't train it carefully, will desperately try and provide you what it thinks you want, and may well miss a mark and produce, well, hallucinations. Silas, is it not just AI that's the problem, is it, though? It's the ever-increasing burden that's put upon conveyancers of all sorts to produce more, and while their costings, their pricings, aren't stepping in line with inflation, aren't stepping in line with the costs that are there within normal life. Well, how do you make this work? How do you square this circle?
This is a great question, Gareth, and it's one the industry should be asking more and more. From what I can see, nobody is prepared to address the nefarious relationship around referral fees. And why I stress that is so important is most people are paying more for their family holiday than they are for their conveyance on their home that they will live in for the next 20 years. Okay, yeah. That to me is a startling statistic, that you'll pay over £2,000 for a family holiday, but less than £1,500 to buy your home. Now, there has to be value, of course, in what you're receiving here. But when a law firm is not only squeezed by a race to the bottom in fees, they're also being squeezed because of margins sucked out through referrals from estate agents or from panel management companies, etc. And the industry kind of accepts this and shrugs it off, but they're not looking at the untold harm that's being caused to the consumer. And I look at the figures, and they say it's 1.37 billion a year that's lost in abortive fees, but I think it's actually far worse than that. If you look at the number of fall throughs that are going on, 1 in 3 transactions falling through, or 1 in 4, depending upon which statistics you're looking at, that's still an incredibly high number. And it's the lost dreams, the lost opportunities, the heartbreak, the months of work for estate agents, where they're sacrificing a £3,500 average fee for the hope of getting a £300 referral fee. To me, it's absolutely nuts. So I think, first of all, the industry's got to address that problem. Secondly, that filters back to what we were talking about with experience, and how we've always learned, as our generation going through our lives, we had somebody that we could learn off who had a lot of knowledge and experience. And I think the unfortunate part about it is that a lot of those good practitioners have left firms. They've now gone back into the industry as consultants, and the younger generation are not getting that level of experience. So they're having to lean more on technology to do their job for them, because they haven't got somebody else teaching them. And I think that's a cycle where we could very shortly end up in a situation where all of that local knowledge and experience, and this is why it's just so important, because you've got local people on the ground who know the area, who can produce a very good set of results for their clients. If you've got, I would never use a solicitor that's not in the local area where I'm buying, because they know all the nuances of what should be going on in the area and what's really an issue and what's not. So where that experience is not being passed down, or, it's fine when you're selling a house on a modern estate, but if you've got an 1800s cottage in the middle of nowhere with rights of way and shared accesses to septic tanks and all of that funny stuff going on, unregistered title, you need somebody with a bit of experience to guide through that transaction. And if you've never done it before, you're not going to learn, or you're going to make a lot of mistakes along the way. Frustratingly, it's stopping people from getting their hands on their dream home. I'll just quote a quick example. I helped a friend a few years ago to try and buy a farm, and he went to a good solicitor, quite a high-level name solicitor in central Birmingham, and I had a phone call off him every week saying the solicitor tells me it can't be done, and I'm educating him to educate the solicitor on how to actually put the deal together and make it work. And in the end, they got it through. But I shouldn't have that knowledge. That should be in the domain of the solicitor, surely, if that's your job. So I think that there needs to be a massive element of retraining around the legal role, what that actually entails, what it is going to become. As I say, I think it's going to be more of a customer facing role from now on, and how to elevate fees up in the industry, because we're seeing fees quoted of £395 for a purchase, £395 for a purchase. The numbers just don't add up. So unless the industry is prepared to address that key point of let us be paid what we're worth, I don't see this problem resolving itself anytime soon.
Wow. Hamish, would you care to take us home, please?
Well, I think we've picked on a number of contributory factors to what is actually happening. Conveyancing is not the easiest of things to carry out, but it is straightforward if a certain pattern is followed. And if professionals are working together to achieve that one single end, to promote their clients, whether they be the seller's solicitor, I think that there needs to be much more interest from the point of view of a client who wants to sell a property, getting involved with the solicitor early, because that will help them sort of so much, because they can gather the information to put their property on the market effectively, so somebody can buy it with an element of sort of trust in the information which is actually sort of coming through. So that needs to help the sort of situation through. But I think the big part is education. It's the education of the general public in understanding the value of the professionals who should be involved with what's actually sort of going on. And unfortunately, we do have this particular sort of materialistic sort of suggestion that you can, if you look around for long enough, you can find something really cheap. If cheap is what you want, cheap is what you'll get. And it's not necessarily the outcome. You need to look at the outcome you want. And as Silas said, if you're willing to actually look around and find out for your holiday, why on earth don't you do the same thing when you're buying or selling a property? And you just work with professionals, and there are ways through it, but recognize the value of the professionals who are involved.
I think it's a drum we've been banging for an awful long time, Hamish and Silas. I think we both all agree that the best way to ensure the sensible outcome for any kind of property purchase is to surround yourself with people that you can guarantee will give you the best information and the right advice at the right time. If you go buy cheap, you buy twice, and never was it truer than in property purchases. Many thanks as ever for your sage knowledge, Silas, and of course Hamish for steering us and keeping us on the straight and narrow. And thank you all for watching. I saw a whole bunch of you came in and out. I hope you've got something useful from us. Remember, if you want to catch up with old property quorums, or in fact any of the property podcasting we do, just go to Spilling the Proper Tea, which is a YouTube channel and has them all in there. Really good topics in there. But tomorrow we have, back at our normal time, I think our normal time is 1 o'clock for most of our podcasts, Hamish. And we're doing Cladding Matters, which is all about health, building safety. And tomorrow, revelations are afoot. So do pop up. It's going to be an excellent show. But until then, please keep your feet on the ground. Keep reaching for the stars. Stay hydrated. And in these troubled times, look after your mental health. Bye-bye now.